I could have made this video at just about any time. I thought about making this video a couple of days ago, and at that time it would have been not in response to, but reflecting on a couple of events that had happened within the spheres that I'm in, within the circles that I'm in. And there is a third event that has come up since then that is relevant. I first thought of writing something about this more than a year ago now, and I may still try and put these words down in a more coherent long form work sometime. I made an awful lot of notes, and then I didn't, because I was too scared about what people would say, and whether I would communicate myself well, whether I would get my message across. What I'm talking about is what happens when people come forward and share their stories of hurt and harm and trauma and abuse, and how we respond to them when they do. And I'm talking about both when they do this publicly, but also when they do it privately or within smaller circles of people. And I think in the age that we live in now, it's easier than ever for any of us to respond and share what we think and show what we think as a comment on a Reddit thread, or as a tweet, or as a reply, as a response, as a sharing of an article, or a dozen other different things. And we're all different people, and I'm sure this doesn't apply to everybody, but I think this applies to more than a few of you out of there when you are saying what you think. I believe that you don't know what you're talking about. Most, if not all, of these people, when they step forward to tell their stories, have spent a very long time thinking about whether they would do that, how they would do that, when they would do that, and many, many other factors. Some of those factors have included: what will people think? How will this affect me? What does this mean for my future? Am I going to be able to explain myself? And very critically, are people going to believe me? All of these survivors have been, for however long, which is going to have been months, years, maybe decades, they have been performing this kind of terrible calculus in their head all of the time. They have been thinking not only what they should say, if ever, but what everything that has happened for them means for their future, for their peer group, for their friend circle, for their career, for their ability to go places and do the things that they want to do. They are calculating and they are calibrating all of the time. One factor in their endless calculations is also likely to be how the person or people that they are going to speak about will also respond. There are absolutely some human beings on this planet who are capable of a quite incredible level of manipulation. And they will have been preparing for things like this to happen, or they will be ready to dismiss and deflect and discredit, to muddy the waters, to distract, to use anything that they can against someone who may want to speak about their experiences with them. And all of us being imperfect human beings as we are, just about everyone everywhere could potentially have some form of ammunition or embarrassment or leverage or blackmail. And that also factors into this ongoing calculus. The fear of not being believed is very real. And when a person has suffered hurt, harm, abuse, trauma, assault, whatever it may have been, they're not just carrying that emotional damage with them. They're carrying this weight all the time, the weight of this calculus. All of these considerations in their life. Before they speak, if they speak, how they speak. Endlessly. And that is totally separate to any other complications and undertakings in their life, such as having to enter therapy or having to handle the results of mental and physical stress, having to deal with problems with their body, having to deal with PTSD, having to deal with nightmares, having to think about how they navigate spaces, how they deal with their peers, how they deal with the communities that they are in, were in, want to be in, might not be in anymore. When you comment on these stories and these people's accounts, I really do think that a great many of you have no idea what a person has been through, because otherwise you might comment differently. And you might perform some of your own calculus. I don't think you've spent years reflecting when you make your comments. And if I had one piece of advice, and I don't feel that I have many, but if I had one for someone who is coming forward to speak, and when I say coming forward, I mean, again, publicly or privately. If you feel discredited, if you feel dismissed, if you feel disbelieved, there is one question you can ask. And I don't know if this will work in every case, but I feel it's an important question to ask. You can ask that person, were you there? Because I bet their answer is going to be no. I also think that the amount of people who have been through any trauma or harm or hurt or abuse or assault or anything else, and who have conducted themselves perfectly and who have dealt with things really well. I think the amount of those people that exist is certainly zero. So be kind to yourself, and if you're a person who expects your survivors to be shining examples of perfection and to carry themselves so very well, fuck you. Not everybody gets a investigation into their situation by the Wall Street Journal, or by journalists, or by peers, or by independent organizations, or by gathering of friends who just want to get to the bottom of things, or by lawyers, or by authorities, or by the police. Some people just have to tell their story, or even not, or just carry their weight and just have to deal with their exploitation, their assault, their bullying with embezzlement or fraud or misogyny or racism or transphobia or homophobia or all these other things. Not everybody will have a happy ending. Not everyone will have a satisfying resolution, or even any resolution at all. Not everybody gets justice, and all of these survivors are weighing that in their calculus, as well as everything else I've spoken about. All of these people behind these headlines or behind these accounts, behind these stories, are real. They exist. And when their experiences are turned into clickbait or something that is trending or the topic of the day, how you respond matters. And if you would like to make the world a little fairer and a little better, and if you would like people who come forward, publicly or privately, in the future to feel safer, and for their calculus to be ever so slightly less terrible, you can think about how you respond, because they see it. They see your responses all the time. And what you say may be found then or later by hundreds of people, thousands, who are considering what to say and how.